Hi, everyone. Mike White here. Welcome to this week's vlog post. It's been another crazy week, volatility in the markets, and at this point in time, I don't know if I'm shocked, surprised, or just disappointed in the fact that the Federal Reserve Board continues to flounder. They insist upon looking at life in the rearview mirror, dealing with data that's months old to make decisions and make projections about what's going to happen in the future. And if it were only the fact that that was all the information that they had and that was the best that they could do, um, maybe I'd be a little more tolerant, or maybe even the industry would work a little harder on figuring out how to get more real-time information, or at least closer information or data that an organization like the Federal Reserve Board could use, instead of looking at stuff in today's world that is months and months old data, and especially when we have other data around that points to the fact that things are trending and looking significantly different than the older data points out. And it's kind of what keeps the markets going back and forth. It's what keeps the volatility happening. It's what people find frustrating is the fact that people can see, the people in the markets can see, they can look at real-time data and see where trends are going. And yet when the Fed sits down to make the most critical financial decisions in the world, they're looking back at reports that are compiled with information that's months and months old, and they don't give any credit. They don't think about that. They don't even understand the possibility that there's real-time data out there that strongly contradicts the same opinions that we would have had months ago. And it's exactly what leads to insane conversations that the Fed had over the past few years. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, can you remember transitory inflation? Remember when the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, Treasury Secretary, all came out and scolded the markets about inflation is not a threat. We got to keep rates at zero. We got to keep buying bonds. We got to keep this stimulus rolling because the markets are in peril. And even people as simple as me could look at the data and say, we're not in that kind of trouble. In fact, we're really seeing significant inflationary pressures. It's not random things like, oh, well, it's just a simple supply chain issue. And to make statements like, well, in the next couple of months, the supply chain will equalize and the prices will go back. Well, we're all sitting here and now, and we can look around and we can say, the ships are not all backed up in California. The supply chain is not the problem. Did prices go back? And the answer is no, prices didn't go back. No, nobody's refunding you that money. That the prices have not gone down. In fact, prices are still going higher. Inflation is still here, but nowhere near at the rate that they were talking about. And the simple fact is we can look at one small microcosm of the entire CPI inflation report, and that's the report the Fed really likes to use. And one of the key heavily weighted components in CPI report are automobiles, especially used cars, right? So the cost of new cars, and I agree that should be in there. Now, we can disagree whether it should be weighted at the weight that it is, or how significant those things are to people who are not in the market to deal with used cars, who are perfectly comfortable with their situation. But okay, used cars have to be there. It is something. And so the CPI report comes out and they tell you that used car prices continue to escalate. The used car prices are, going higher, and that inventories of used cars are, small, and the demand is high, and blah, blah, blah. And we can sit around and we can look and we can look at more recent information, stuff that is services that car dealers use real time. They can tell you what any make, any model of with any option and any color of any car has sold in the United States in the past week. They can tell you exactly what the wholesale and retail price of those cars are. I mean, real-time information. However, the Fed doesn't get real-time information. It's basing information on months and months and months ago. And therein lies the problem, because if you just look, if you're the markets, if I'm a financial analyst and I'm working, my job, and I'm looking at real-time data, because probably what I'm supposed to do is know exactly what's going on right now. I'm looking at the markets and I'm seeing what's going on, and I realize, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist, because I'm fortunate. I happen to live by one of the largest wholesale car auction sites in the country. And a year ago, 2 years ago, those lots were mostly empty. And there weren't a lot of cars in there. And used car prices were skyrocketing. Absolutely, positively true. And that made all the sense in the world. I could see it. I could drive by and I could see car dealer lots were empty. I could see that the wholesale auction was sparsely populated with cars. Many of them have been sitting around, cars that couldn't get the price that people wanted. And today, that's not true. I see the trucks and trucks and trucks. Not only is that lot full, their overflow lots are full. And a friend of mine who is a car dealer has told me that he's seeing the highest number of repossessions and surrenders and cars coming in, to the auctions that he's seen in a long, long time. And some of that has to do with the fact that, let's face it, repossessions are up because people aren't getting free money anymore. And if you think repossessions of cars is high now, wait until we get to September, October, November, when these people have to go back to paying their student loans. So something as simple as that data, if you take the real-time data, just that one component of the CPI report, and plug it in to the CPI report, inflation is closer to 3% than it is 4%. Do you know how much a difference that makes in the outlook? So then the Fed takes this information and they do their, collaborative process, if you'll call it that. And they come out with the thing, which I call it the stupidest thing in the history of economic forecasting, which is the Federal Reserve dot chart graph. It's each member's prediction as to where they see interest rates in the near future. And if you're a student of any, and I just ask, go online and you can pull them up over history, and you'll find out that you might as well just be throwing darts at a dartboard by a drunken sailor, because there's no rhyme or reason to it, and it's not remotely even a basis of any type of real, economic projection. I have no idea why they do it, but they go out there and they do it, and a lot of people take it to heart, and they're coming out and they're saying, hey, you know what? Based upon what it is that we're seeing, we're going to pause now in interest rates, but we expect that the Fed funds rate is going to be, 5.6% on average by the end of the year. Seriously? Because you're looking at old data. You're not looking at real time. You're not even looking at the data you're going to be comparing things to year over year, starting next month. And so I know this is a little bit of a rant, and I know this is very painful. I know we're living through an interest rate market volatility that makes no sense even to really intelligent people, people who do this for a living, versus the consumer who has no idea why rates are fluctuating and bouncing all around, and generally for the worse. And the reality of it is, the markets are viewing one set of information and looking at real-time information. The Federal Reserve Board, people that set policy, the people that set the rates, the people that make the market, because you can't fight the Fed, are looking at older information. And that battle, until the Fed decides to wake up, until the Fed decides to demand real-time information before the Fed starts making decisions that affect the entire world using real-time data, we're going to be subject to this type of nonsense. And you're going to find out, mark my words, as the summer goes on, these numbers are going to be adjusted. People are going to look back and say, Jesus, the Fed missed it again, which is no shock. It's absolutely no shock, because all you have to keep saying to yourself is, these are the best and the brightest that we could find to put in these positions of power. who tried to sell America on the fact that inflation was transitory. And they missed it. Then they spent a year defending it before they finally admitted it, and we're still paying for it. So I'm sorry for the rant. It just had to be done. I just try to explain to people why things are the way they are, and sometimes there's just no practical way to say it other than we allow people, you know, we gave a 16-year-old with a learner's permit the keys to a Ferrari. Sometimes it's just the way that comes out. But here we are. So there's that. The good news is mortgage applications were up, you know, almost 7%, I believe, last week, and activity seems to be good. Even refinances were up. So that's the good news. The challenge is, the bad news is, we're going to have to continue working through this mess until volatility comes up. But mark my words, rates are going to continue to be volatile, but they're going to be in a downward trend soon. And it's unfortunate, but unless something happens, the Fed is dealing with old information. So things that the markets are thinking should have happened already when it comes to pricing are probably not going to show up until July, August, and September. And we're going to see real impacts in the markets when those student loan repayments are coming back and the economy slows down. As that money gets sucked out of the economy, you know, it's going to show up in October, November, December. So my belief is, I would, if, you know, there was a betting line on the Fed's projection on their dot chart about where Fed funds rates were going to be, I'd be betting the under, but that's just me. As always, questions or comments, it's Mike at imtcoaching.com. We'll talk to you again next week. Take care.